Hello and welcome to first practice for the Las Vegas Grand Prix and the final 3 races of this epic 24 race season. We've travelled just over 6,000 miles northwest from Sao Paulo to the famous Las Vegas Strip under the lights for round 22 of this 2024 season. They say what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas, but it might not this weekend because Max Verstappen could win his 4th driver's title around this 6.2 kilometre or 3.853 mile circuit. It winds its way past all the Vegas landmarks, past the Caesars Palace in front of the Bellagio fountains, the Wynn and the Sphere. 17 turns, 11 to the left, 6 to the right. 2 DRS zones between turns 4 and 5, 13 and 14, and a 1.9 kilometre flat-out run from the exit of turn 12 all the way down to the braking at turn 14. It is a spectacular layout. And as you can see from that, as they wind their way around that tricky section around the Sphere as well, they will do 50 laps around here on Saturday night. It's a Saturday night race, and they will use a choice of these 3 tyre compounds from Pirelli. The C5 soft, the C4 medium, and the C3 hard. The same as was used in Mexico and Brazil also. So they have quite a lot of knowledge on these softest compounds, but not at these temperatures because it is cold here at the moment. It is currently 14.5 degrees, but across the weekend and through the night, because this is the start of our day, Corinne Chandok, it drops as low as 3 degrees, as we found out last night.
Yeah, absolutely. Freezing cold at night, but at the moment, as you say, still a balmy 14.5. I mean, it is a spectacular place to come, isn't it? Look, you can just see the lights and those iconic names that we all hear from or remember from the movies that we see of Caesar's Palace and the Bellagio and the Venetian. But the drivers aren't looking at that bit. They're looking at the ribbon of asphalt that's fully lit up and looks fantastic.
Can we play low grip lottery in this session? How soon into the session will we hear someone complaining about the lack of grip?
I'm going to, say that probably on the first run. So yeah, within the first 2 laps. Yeah.
Well, this is it. I mean, the track evolution across the weekend is incredible because this circuit is open during the day. This is what's different about this street circuit.
Yeah.
We can walk on the track during the day. We can walk across to go and get coffee in the morning. Across the track, the cars were on a few hours before. Well,
Ted and I went for lunch and took a cab coming back at 4 p.m. as they were shutting the circuit. And it's literally 2.5 hours ago. So it is, yeah, it's very, very unique, isn't it? You know, we go to obviously places like Monaco where they do open the roads out in between, but nowhere is it open so close to the first running of a Formula One car. So, you know, if you've got buses and taxis and things like that that have dumped a bit of oil, it can be problematic for the first runs.
So these first runs could be tricky in this session. We've seen Ted there wandering in the pit lane. He's down there for us and will be throughout this session. Now, as I mentioned, Max Verstappen could win the world title this weekend. It's all in his hands. Brazil, such a turning point, wasn't it, for him and for Lando?
It was, yeah. I mean, an absolutely outstanding drive from him. I think the guys before the session were talking about it. I think for him it was important to not just win the race, but to dominate. And that's why he went and won by 90 seconds. You know, we have people who say, oh, he only won because he got the free pit stop. That's rubbish. He beat George Russell by 23 seconds. So he could have had the pit stop and still beaten George Russell. And he said 9 out of the top 10 fastest laps. So there you go.
Captain Marvel tribute helmet on Esteban Ocon's helmet today. Let's go to our own Captain Marvel, who's down in the pit lane for us, Ted Kravitz. Good evening, Ted.
Good evening. Hello, Rachel. Hello, Karun. Hello, everybody. Yes, welcome to the pit lane. And if it feels like Japan for you at home, waking up at 2:30 in the morning to join us live, then you're not alone. It feels like Japan for us as well, because it is championship deciding weekend, take one. The first weekend where really we can have the championship decided, as that happens so often in Suzuka, Japan, but it's happening now this year in Las Vegas, Nevada, or Las Vegas, Nevada, as they say, pronounce it round here. But we're all very excited for the weekend ahead, and I'm outside the Red Bull garage, where none more so than Max Verstappen, his first win since Spain in June, a couple of weeks ago in Brazil, as you've been saying, Rachel, his first win since Adrian Newey left the team. Let's not forget that. And his first win since the wobble that we're calling it actually ended, and that Red Bull have started to understand this RB20. Max making the point yesterday that even though the race was wet, 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 in the dry, he's getting the feeling that this Red Bull is back to its winning ways. Well, we'll have to see, because there's no chance of any rain this weekend. But so many storylines to get our teeth into this weekend. So, yeah, no wonder you joined us at 2:30, everybody. There's plenty to talk about.
There is indeed. Thank you very much for the moment, Ted. I mean, Karun on that. Ferrari have come into this weekend feeling pretty confident. They have had a good car in the last few races. If you take out Brazil as an outlier in those conditions, they are hopeful that this will be a good weekend for them, potentially their best out of these last three.
Yeah, and you know, I think Brazil was weird, wasn't it? Because we expected them to be strong after the previous two races where they dominated Austin and Mexico. And then we had a dry sprint, and they never really looked like they were going to be a contender. It just didn't seem competitive at all. And in the wet, neither driver looked like they had any chance to fight the Alpines or Max. You know, so it was a weird weekend, and really I think they came away pretty disappointed after their recent run of form. So we'll see, because the track layout, theoretically and on paper, it does the long straights, short corners, curves, you know, 90-degree corners like we've got there at turn 12. That suits the Ferrari. We know that they've got this tremendous ability to rotate in the slow-speed corners, and it could work out for them.
36 points behind McLaren right now. McLaren looking at Qatar as potentially their best out of the last three races, and needing to maximise there. For the constructors, between them, I mean, Red Bull have almost written themselves off, haven't they, out of it, in the way they're talking. But if the cars come back, could be a massive battle for these three in the constructors as we go towards the end. Oh
yeah, and you know, that's where the big money's paid. Obviously, you can just see the dust coming off the surface there. I mean, you'd have to say they've done a good job with the track surface last year. I know Lando got caught.
Feels like I'm driving in the wet, honestly. Loud and clear.
First lap.
Well, I mean, he didn't say there's no grip, but he did say it feels like he's driving in the wet. I mean, that's what he's intimating, isn't it?
So first lap.
Yes, okay. I had a question for you, actually. When was the last time, so if Red Bull don't finish in the top two in the constructors, when was the last time that a driver won the championship with a team outside the top two?
81, wasn't it? Or 80, 81? One of those.
A bit later.
Really?
83, PK Brabham.
Well, oh yeah, okay. Because it was Ferrari won the constructors that year, wasn't it?
I've hit you early in the weekend. That was cruel, but You were
No?
very close. I've hit you early in the weekend with the trivia, but it was close. It was close. Right, let's look at some track action then around here, because what are the biggest challenges of this track? I know at the moment it's getting used to the grip and finding the car, but what sort of car do you want around here?
I think braking stability is obviously hugely important, but low drag. Low drag is key, so you've got to take all the downforce off and still have a car that's going to be stable on the brakes, have good traction. You know, you haven't got many high-speed corners. Turns 3 and 4 are the only ones really. The rest of it are all pretty slow. You know, you look there at the apex max, not even 60 mile an hour. It will improve as the grip improves, but and then you come around the sphere here. Look at the chicane 7, 8, so slow, just tiptoeing your way around, trying to bring the car back. And so yeah, you really need a car that can rotate in the slow speed corners and go quickly in the low drag stuff down the straight.
Coldest temperatures of the year we're going to have this weekend. It's a battle for the teams, isn't it? I mean, we did have a great race last year, so we're not going to complain. It was a fantastic race.
No, it's great, and you know what? The most important thing, it's the same for everyone. They've all got to, you know, they've got to find ways to contend with it, and that is part of the challenge, right? If you're going to have the best engineers, the best drivers, and the best teams in the world of motorsport, you've got to throw different conditions at them, and I think that's great. I mean, just look, you can see the dust coming off there, just like a haze. And the driver's got to be careful not to get too close to the walls, because in this early stage, the dust will just start to collect along the walls. They will sweep it overnight, and they'll try and clear off some of that. But the F1 cars are the best hoovers. It just, you know, the amount of downforce they've got, they will just suck the dust off the asphalt.
Momentary yellow flag there. See what happened there, but it is back green again at the moment. There was slow-moving Red Bull just making space.
Yeah, just getting out of the way there for Nico Hülkenberg. This is Oscar Piastri. So where's this? This is the yellow flag we had at 7 and 8.
Yeah.
There's just no grip out there.
I was going to say, I'm waiting for his radio message. There's no grip.
Yeah, I mean,
everyone at the same point.
At the moment, they're sort of 4 seconds away from the pace we saw last year in FP1. So, yeah, the track evolution will be high. You know, as the temperatures will keep plummeting. It's already lost 2.5 degrees from when we started to now. We're only sort of 6 minutes into the session. But yeah, you know, we started speaking range 11 minutes ago. It's lost 2.5 degrees in track temp already.
Imagine how it's going to be at the end of FP2.
Yeah.
Jensen Button's joined us in the commentary box from the paddock. Would you want to be driving in those sort of temperatures later on, down to 2-3 degrees out there?
It's really tricky. First of all, hello.
Hi.
How are we all doing? Look at that. Beautiful.
It's a great shot.
Oh, apart from that, apart from all the dust, it is going to take him a long time to clear this dust. Obviously, it's not been driven by a racing car for a whole year. So these things are like hoovers. Oh, you can see how low the grip there is, can't you, with the rear of the car moving around. But it's tough now. The circuit grip will get better, but as the temperature drops, it's just getting those tyres working. It's tricky.
It's weird to see them all braking in the middle of the road at turn 14.
Yeah.
None of the drivers are daring to go close to the walls, because I think it's just so low grip. You're just giving yourselves lots of margin at the moment. But the evolution is so high, isn't it? Every lap they're going around, we're just seeing the fastest lap improve by chunks. Russell's done a 42.5 now.
There was 8 seconds difference between the fastest lap in FP1 last year and the pole lap. I mean, it went from a 140 to a 132.
Yeah.
Wow, that is a lot.
But I think that's slightly skewed by the fact that FP1 was shortened, wasn't it? Because we had the drain issue.
The drain issue.
So we didn't actually see a proper full FP1.
And I guess they're also learning
Yeah,
a bit
first
of it.
time round. Yeah.
It is a slippery circuit, even when it's high grip. When you look at Charles Leclerc's lap from his qualifying lap, his pole position lap, it looks tough, doesn't it?
Yeah.
There's a lot of understeer on the way into turn 1, then the rear is just on the edge all the way out. So it isn't easy for these guys, but they're the best in the world. They'll be okay.
They'll manage. George Russell quickest so far with a yellow flag in sector 3 now. Is that Colapinto, was it? Having a moment through sector 3. Charles Leclerc's just beaten George Russell with a 1:41.9. Oscar Piastri coming into this weekend now being asked about, is he glad that there won't be any more team orders, essentially, and seemed pretty chipper with that yesterday.
So just picking up, Rich, on the... he's doing a constant speed. Yeah, constant speed, just to show people at home. You see the bar at the bottom, and he's made an adjustment there. So the drivers will use the session to gather information for the aero team, basically, back at base. And they'll be asked to hold a constant speed at a certain speed for a certain number of time. And that's where you saw that CSL
is that what that
come
was?
up,
Okay.
it's constant speed limit. So that's really for the aero team back at base to get a bit of information.
McLaren with a few tweaks this weekend, mostly to the front wing. Ferrari the ones with the most updates, but say they're just running them in practice, not going to necessarily be running them in the races. Max goes quickest overall, and then Lewis replaces. And these times are just going to keep dropping, aren't they, throughout the session, though?
Yeah. Nice little shortcut through there. It's a nice racing line to the pit, even though it was very slow. But it's so dusty offline coming into the pits, isn't it, you notice?
Yeah. It's not a time to be risking, is it? No. To be practicing the last 5 meters under braking for the pit entry. So yes. They've come in and done effectively a tyre stop onto another set of mediums, their McLaren. So that's interesting, isn't it? Are they just trying to put hot tyres on that have come straight out of the blanket?
Yeah, I guess so. Because you wouldn't normally want to run two, just gone straight on there, but you wouldn't normally want to put two sets on in this condition, because it does damage the tyre, the amount of dust there is. Yeah. You normally want the circuit to clean up and then put your fresh tyres on.
But equally, I think if the tyres are too cold, you get the cold graining, you get these ripples on the top surface, which just shreds it because the temperature is too cold. So they'll be monitoring that. They'll have sensors to look at the inside of the tyre, what's known as the bulk temperature, but they'll also have a way. Typically they have sensors on the wing looking back, and they'll tell the outside temperature as well. So the engineers will see, you know, if you're going too low and you're going to start graining the tyre, get that cold grain, it's worth just putting another hot set on.
Red Bull out on softs at the moment. Check out Max Verstappen. Keep an eye on them. Early to stick them on, or are they just trying to do something different and we don't know what their
I think
plans are?
Yeah, when the temperatures are this cold, every step in the compound, you'll find bigger gains, just because, you know, the softer tyres you'll be able to energize them a bit more and get them into the temperature window. Eventually, they're all going to use them, right? And to be honest, the ultimate lap time in this session is so irrelevant. Ooh, that little snap he had there, and you hear the bottoming. That is exactly where he had the bottoming and the snap, which sent him in the barrier last year.
The race,
12, yeah.
Lap 3, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was very early on.
But yeah, you could see the car get unsettled at the rear. Because it's also a tricky place for braking, isn't it? You're laterally loaded. It's very easy to lock it inside front in that section.
1.9 kilometers flat.
Yeah, but you hear the revs take a jump up. That's the DRS. As soon as you dump the drag, you just hear the revs jump up there.
Look at the car moving around. It's really tricky, especially when you're at a low speed. The downforce isn't really having much of an effect. As soon as you get above a certain speed, it's lovely. You suddenly think, oh, I'm protected. I'm protected by that downforce.
I'll tell you who's going to be quick in this session. Valtteri Bottas. He's king of the low grip circuits, low grip conditions.
What's next for Valtteri? Going quickest in FP1. Ted Kravitz is down in the pit lane. Ted.
Oh, big shout. Yeah, maybe Valtteri will. We will see what's happening at Alpine.
Quickest, Ted, but I'll give him the top
okay.
8. Let's say top 8.
He was in the top 10 last year on the grid.
Okay. Come on, if you will, with your predictions. Follow through on it. Listen, what's going on with the Alpines? They are now going to actually set a time, but they're just seeing the drivers, you know, experienced enough getting that second and third places in the wet of Brazil, have just realised there's no point pushing the car. I think Esteban Ocon on the radio, Rachel, was saying that he's never known grip so low as this early on. I can feel it in the pit lane. It's that when they come through, as the Alpines, both Alpines have been through the pit lane a couple of times so far in this session, and the dust comes up, you can feel it in your eyes. I can feel the grit between my teeth. It's pretty bad, and it's worse on track. So yeah, they're just being very careful. I think they're about to set a time, both Ocon and Gasly. We'll see them on your timing tower very shortly.
Yeah, we're literally watching Pierre Gasly go around now as he goes green in the first sector. Both Alpines pink now for the final 3 races of this season, and they said it was a massive lift for the team to get that result in Brazil, but the rain and those conditions were a leveller, Esteban Ocon was saying.
That would scare me if you came around the corner and had this massive face staring at you, didn't you?
I know. I mean, qualifying must be tricky. If it stays the same, it's okay, but it's if it's moving.
Yeah,
Yeah, and it catches your eye.
It's like a change. Yeah, exactly.
Because you've got incredible peripheral vision as a driver, haven't you? I remember last year when I was here, I did a very early morning walk, and they put the emoji waking up, and as I came close to it, it opened its eyes, and it gave me the fright of my life as I walked along the street. Back to Pierre Gasly then on track here. Still got Lewis Hamilton going quickest, Max Verstappen second quickest, but on the soft tyre. Everyone else out on the mediums right now. Trying to get position, the Ferrari and the Aston Martin. Are they going through there?
The challenge around here is the racing line is going to get cleaned up so much that actually overtaking away from the racing line could become tricky.
But we did have overtakes last year.
Yeah, because I think the straight is so long and the DRS is powerful.
We had overtaking around the outside of turn 2. Quite unusual places.
Yeah, it was Gasly, wasn't it? Went around the outside of somebody.
And Max overtook George at turn 11, was it? The corner that Lando had his jump.
Yeah.
I mean, they hit each other. But
We had lots of dicing last year. We had quite a few moves, actually, not all on the straight. Thinking about it now, we just had a momentary yellow flag in sector 2, but it's all cleared. Zhou Guanyu rumoured to be joining Ferrari as a reserve development driver for next season now that the other seat at Sauber has gone.
scary how easy it is to lock an outside front.
Yeah.
That's what's very, very unusual. It's a weighted front. I think it is, but there's a bump, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, but I think the other thing is here, though, Jensen, with these cold temperatures and the cold air going through, actually getting the right brake temperatures is going to be a challenge, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because it's, just to explain to people at home, these brakes don't really work if they're below 400 degrees. So you've got to find a way to keep the temperature up despite cold air blowing onto it for 1.9 kilometers down the straight. So when you get to the brake pedal at the end of the straight, if you've got a split, sometimes you do get these weird splits left to right, then you'll get these unusual lockups, you get strange grabs. The electronics, in theory, should help sort it out. But if you get temperatures that are too cold, you get a grab. So it is really difficult to set up, and especially, I think, early in the weekend, till they get the data they want.
Lewis Hamilton still quickest so far to this point, though, but it's still looking very, very dusty. When will that clear up across the weekend? Are we looking at end of qualifying? Will there still be, because it opens up so much in between?
It's strange because it's not windy. It's amazing it's so dusty. They just need more cleaners out there trying to get rid of the dust, I guess, because the cars aren't going to get rid of the dust. They just move it from one place on the track to another. So
yeah, it'll clean the lineup, won't it?
Yeah, clean the lineup. Yeah.
Yeah.
But the it's a funny session, this one, because you got to take it with a pinch of salt as a driver in a team, because if you find a setting I've got too much understeer in the car on this session, it's very, the circuit's going to change so much that you could really make a mistake with where you go with the setup. So it's more about ride heights and the simple stuff, really.
I was going to say, what can you learn, team and...
mate. My God.
And traffic.
Yes.
Getting out the way.
You know what I'm interested to see is what happens with Mercedes over this weekend, because one thing we've seen on a number of other weekends this year is they are quick on a Friday. They're quick as the track, when people first get going on a green track. But as the track has rubbered up, as we get into Saturday, Sunday, they've fallen backwards.
Or everyone else has overtaken them.
Yeah, it's the same thing.
Yeah.
But the point being, if you've got an inherently low grip circuit, will they be more competitive overall? Because obviously they're 1-2 at the moment. That's what made me think about it. But I'd be interested to see once we get to Saturday and Sunday, if on a low grip track they're able to stay more competitive.
Yep. Ted, down to you.
Got a bit of action, thank you, Rachel. Got a bit of action down at the Aston Martin garage. Both drivers have come in quite quickly. Aston Martin have been changing a little brake duct on Fernando Alonso's car, but that's now job complete, and he'll be out in a second. But take a look at this at Lance Stroll's car. Quite a lot of attention around the right rear, the left rear, as we look at it. A little mechanic human wall in front of the car because they don't want us to see it, so we'll respect that. But yeah, they've been looking at the floor, some issue on the floor, an issue around the right rear, as well as Stroll's car is up on the high stand. So yeah, missing some valuable track time down here at Aston.
Thank you, Ted. Yes, the mechanic human wall, or mechanics human wall. Yellow flag, sector 3 right now. Let's have a look. Everyone seems to be moving through now.
I wonder if it's drivers. I wonder if it's drivers going slowly at 14, 15, 16, just trying to make a gap. There's sort of 3 or 4 cars there, so. We'll say he's got Captain America on his helmet, hasn't he? Or the
yes.
Captain America.
Did I say Captain
logo.
Marvel? I said Captain Marvel, didn't I, earlier to Ted? Captain America. You're correct, Karun.
But yeah, what a great race for Ocon and Alpine in Brazil. I mean, he did such a good job first of all qualifying to get himself up there, but in the race, like, he held his own. You know, apart from Max, there was nobody else who had the pace. You know, you had Russell and Norris behind them, but they had genuinely better pace than any of those people.
See how they get on. Go on.
Just saying, it's obviously a very, very different type of track and very different conditions. Well, it's very slippery out there, but their car seems to be working well in the wet conditions, and it's always difficult to try and work out why that is. Why a car works in the wet better than it does in the dry. Why they can't switch it on in the dry, but they can in the wet. Yeah,
I think a lot of teams were struggling with brake issues and just braking stability, braking confidence in Brazil. You know, certainly McLaren, Aston Martin, Williams, they were all struggling with it. So, you know, but whereas Alpine seemed to get it in the right window there.
Oh, so much dust there at the moment, that dust. You just saw a moment ago, actually, the F1 drivers being shown on the sphere. They will be completing their season at the next round in Qatar, of course. As for now, Lewis Hamilton leads the times right now with his teammate George Russell right behind him. What's happened to Max down here? Let's see. Is this where we had this momentary lock-up for Max? So he went off. That would have been the momentary yellow flag that we saw in that final sector. But back on track. But even Max struggling out there with that lock-up right now.
Yeah, it's. I think he's going to be. He's going to be struggling a little bit with the flat spot on that, because there was quite a strong lock-up there.
Right, Sergio out on track, going better than his previous laps, but he's not going to treble the top of the times at the moment. Currently sitting 10th, should go a little bit quicker than that. And Oscar Piastri on his lap now as well, behind, but lost some time through there through sector 2. Could be a bit of traffic for him actually as he goes through there. He's behind Lewis Hamilton right now on track, as we're watching Sergio Perez come round now as he approaches the flag, or the finish line I should say, to get his lap in, and there he goes, fourth fastest.
Yeah,
Black and white flag for car 43 Colapinto, sorry, Karun, failing to follow race director's instructions, crossing the line at pit entry. We've seen that before, haven't we? From,
that was that bit that we saw with all the dust coming up, is he was quite late coming into the pit lane there. It's quite a high-speed corner, so the pit lane entry line is like a bit like Baku. It's extended back a reasonable amount on the track for safety reasons, so which I think is the right thing to do. So
I struggled to see it because it looked like he was far to the right, wasn't it, when he was coming into the pits? But I struggled to actually see the white line
where it started.
Yeah, or just seeing it on the right-hand side. We can see it here, yeah.
Out the window.
We're not moving.
on TV. at speed. I mean, it's almost sort of, what is it, 2/3, almost halfway down that straight between 16 and 17, where they have to move across and come in.
They've sort of painted this white with blue on either side to try and highlight it a bit more. But yeah, I think under the layer of dust it is probably quite tricky to see. So the stuff. Yeah, he's ploughing on that first set of soft tyres, isn't he? So
it's feel like a 50p piece, that.
Yeah,
well,
when he looked up on.
You can see the front right graining on it as well. Through turn 1. Does seem a little bit bumpier through there, doesn't it? The right hand, and the left.
I mean, it is on the edge, isn't it?
And the wheel spin traction.
Absolutely on the edge. But George Russell now, so he's a couple of tenths down on Hamilton, but both Mercedes at the moment quite a margin ahead of both Ferraris and
Half a second
in
ahead
third
of
and
Ferraris
fourth.
at the moment,
And you know, once again, Mercedes on a first session of the weekend, looking pretty competitive.
He did well in Brazil. George put himself above Lewis in the Drivers' Championship as well with that result in Brazil. 2 points ahead of Lewis now, 6th. And Lewis in 7th right now. His lowest position in the Drivers' Championship since 2012.
Wow. It's so much fun watching him go through 14, 15, 16. He's trying to put 1,000 horsepower down, and it's just he's drifting all the way through there, to the left, to the right, to the left. It's not easy for them out there. They're also finding it really difficult to pick a turning in point. It's very difficult to be precise because of the amount of sliding they have with the car.
Yeah.
Four-wheel sliding.
The rear of the car is just floating, isn't it? And
Yeah.
it's like you're just kind of waiting for it to set. You know what it reminds me of? It reminds me of when you go winter testing in Barcelona.
Yeah.
You know, that first run, 9 in the morning or something. And it's just so cold, you can't get anything to work for the first couple of hours. It looks like that. That's the replay, isn't
Yeah,
it?
of Colapinto coming in, just missing the start of that pit entry line.
Oh,
Here we go.
This is the onboard.
He's done the same, Alex Albon.
So this is the entry to the pit lane, and that's Alex Albon doing the same thing as his teammate.
I have to say, there's too many white lines. There's way
Confusing.
too many white lines there. And, you know, if you've been into the pits a few times, you understand where it is. But you have the center of the road line, first of all, don't you?
The car won't turn off.
That's an odd problem to have.
The car's like, no, I'm not going back in the garage.
Well, you can
I
hear
want
it.
to carry on.
Yeah. It's
Wonder-
not like your road car where you just...
Well, it is, you know, there's a switch. You
P1,
turn it
P0.
off. You go P1, P0.
Ted's down there. Ted?
Oh, he's tried the old P1, P0. The chief mechanic has even tried to go into the side of the car and pull the kill switch. And still, you can hear the Mercedes engine on tick over. Oh, finally, well done, that man. Someone's obviously reset something. The ERS safety light was purple, and then it only went green when it was set back in the garage. So they finally figured that out. So I would imagine that is just something really odd on a kind of electronic glitch that's made sure that Piastri's McLaren wasn't able to shut itself down. Very odd. Very odd. Haven't seen that before. You could just
Thank you.
cut the
Go
fuel
on.
mixture somehow. That would do it. That would shut the engine off, wouldn't it?
Well, I was thinking you couldn't install
Other
it
way.
these days
No,
because
you can't install it.
Well, you
The
can.
anti-stall
Can't
kicks
stall
in.
You
it.
can. Because after a while, it cuts out, doesn't it?
But they tried everything.
You have
Yeah.
to pull. You have
For
to
a
pull.
certain period of
You
time.
still have to pull the clutch.
Yeah.
Weird,
At some
isn't it?
Within a
certain point.
stage, yeah.
Thank you, Ted. Still seeing them there working around the car and just having a good old look. Can that be a software issue?
Wow. Definitely is, right?
Yeah,
The
yeah.
switch isn't working.
Lance Stroll, Jensen, I don't know, where were you watching the Brazilian Grand Prix from? Were you
From
back at
home.
home? Yeah. That was odd, wasn't it? Where
Yeah,
he just
very
sort
odd.
of drove into the gravel.
Well, I guess he thought it was compacted enough that he would just be able to drive over it.
Because some of it is at some tracks.
Yeah, it is.
The pit entry line is almost impossible to see. Yeah, understood.
Yeah, it was a very odd one. But it's very, very deep gravel there. Until you've got there, you don't know. But still, yeah. There was tarmac on the other side.
Well,
He
this
could have
is
just
it. You
spun it
saw
around.
others go
Yeah.
round, didn't you? Go around the tarmac and rejoin.
Yeah, I really felt for his
Oh.
mechanics. I mean, they've done such a good job getting those cars, both cars,
Both cars.
gearboxes. It's such a lot of work to do. There he is.
You're right. There are too many white lines.
Yeah. They're everywhere.
It needs to be yellow, doesn't it?
Well,
It
Big
does.
arrow.
Like, no, it just needs you need a big, thick yellow line.
Yeah.
I'm serious.
or
Because
just delete the white ones.
something, yeah, something to stand out. Because
That's going to happen again to someone else.
Yeah, it needs like a big fat yellow line.
Right, Mercedes then, Lewis Hamilton, he was so down after Brazil. When I spoke to him in the pen, and he said he just wanted to go on holiday, and we heard that team radio saying, if this is the last time, you know, it's been great. And people were confused by what he was saying on the radio. Was it because the pit crew were changing, or what was happening? And he's admitted he got to a point where he didn't want to get back in the car. I mean, he's here this weekend, he's ready to go. But, you know, he said it didn't really want to come back after that weekend at all.
Yeah, and we've all been there. We've all had tough weekends, and I've had one in Brazil as well. But I'm so glad he has, because you don't want to end your career like that. It doesn't matter how many
time with the team.
Yeah.
He's coming back for Ferrari.
No,
but
but also when you've won 7 world championships in all those races, and to end, you know, after a weekend like that, that's what you remember. That's the last thing you remember about Formula One. You don't want that. So, well, this team anyway. So, yeah, I think I'm really happy that he's here, and we'll see. Well, I'm sure we'll see the best of Lewis. Looks quick.
You know him. I mean, he's 16.5 down on George in qualifying, and when you think of Lewis in qualifying, you think he's the guy that's going to get the lap.
Yeah, that's
if
his
anyone
strength.
is,
Yeah.
that's his strength. So how hard will that have been for him this year? And he's just been overtaken in the drivers. But I think when I speak to him, the impression I get from him is that qualifying is really hurting right now.
Yeah, I mean, he's almost 40 years old, and maybe you do lose a tiny bit. You know, you're racing against 20-year-olds. Your reactions, however good they are still not going to be as good as a 20-year-old's reaction. So you can possibly lose that slight edge, which wouldn't show up in a race, but I think in qualifying that's where it does become a little bit more difficult. But no, it hurts. It does when you see the younger drivers suddenly not just quick in qualifying, but it's the consistency they can put in qualifying.
We're watching Lando Norris now as he comes round to complete this lap. Very pleased to say that Zach Brown is on the pit wall for us this weekend. Zach, the Ferrari looking like saying or sounding confident that this could be a track for them this weekend. How are you looking so far, and what have the team said to you can expect from this weekend?
All good so far. Track, as you would expect, doesn't have much grip, so I think we'll see times continue to tumble. I do think Ferrari will be the strongest this weekend. Mercedes is obviously looking good early on, so it'll probably be very similar to what we've seen the last few races, but I do think this is a circuit in particular that will suit the Ferrari.
Hey, Zach. Just a quick question on Oscar's car. We don't often see cars with the engine running being pushed back in the garage. I see that he tried P1, P0, but is it a slight electrical glitch you have there?
Yeah, small issue, but it'll get resolved. We know what it is, but yeah, that was a bit unusual, as you said, but all sorted.
Zach, can I just take a step away from what we're saying on track just for a moment and ask you, as a team principal, you know, coming in this weekend, we know we've had this really unusual change of a race director with just 3 races to go. The drivers all seem pretty confused about it and almost unanimous in saying it doesn't make a lot of sense. How do you guys, as team bosses and stakeholders, because the decisions made have a huge impact, right, on your team, on your business, and the end results. I mean, do you guys have a voice? Do you guys go? Do you talk to the FIA? Maybe you could share a little bit with people at home.
Yeah, we have a voice, but we don't have a vote. And I think in that particular instance, we weren't consulted. FIA doesn't need to consult us. They're obviously doing what they want to do in the best interest of the sport. So we just need to trust them in their decision making. I think, yeah, with 3 races to go. But we kind of found out at the same time as everyone else, but I'm confident. I know the new gentleman, I don't know him personally, but know of his background and been told he's quite good, so hopefully it'll be a seamless transition.
How much of a relationship do you have with the race director, Zach? How much, you know, on a day-to-day basis or on a race-by-race basis, how much contact do you have, and how important is it,
well,
that role to you?
Yeah, very important, obviously. You know, it's a bit of a controversial at times, as are all referees in the sport. They don't always get it right, but they're trying their best. The drivers have relationships with them. Our sporting directors have relationships with them. I don't in particular, because it's not an area that I get involved in. But yeah, well, hopefully it's a step forward, because I think we do need to work in the off season on some of the rules and regulations as well. Sometimes the stewards are handicapped by the rules that we put in place with this race to the apex. So I think we'll review it over the winter and hopefully improve upon it for next season.
And Zach, finally, I just want to ask you about Lando, because he seemed pretty downbeat in the press conference yesterday, with sort of speaking about how it feels like the championship is finally sort of done and dusted. Okay, mathematically still in it, but it felt like there was a sense of acceptance in terms of the Drivers' Championship. Have you spent a bit of time with him between Brazil and here in Vegas? Because that result must have been pretty tough to swallow.
Yeah, that was a frustrating weekend. You know, the weather was pretty brutal, so I think there are a few things we could have done differently, but for the most part, it was difficult conditions, and he drove really well. Not much I think we could have done differently that would have modified the result much. Yeah, I think that was a big weekend where we thought we could have maybe really closed the gap, and you end up leaving Sunday. And kind of while you're mathematically in it, I think we've got to be realistic and say take pretty much a miracle. So we'll just keep doing what we're doing, which is try and win every weekend, see what happens. But I think realistic, we now need to pretty much focus on the constructors.
Zach, can I just ask you, just finish it off? I mean, when we look at Brazil, there were teams that took a risk and didn't pit. You guys did. Would you look at those decisions for next year and think, do you know what, if we're going to win a championship, we need to add a little bit more risk into it? Into our decisions?
Well, always easy, of course, after the fact. Mercedes is an awesome team, and they made the same decision we did. So, you know, easy, obviously, in hindsight to say, I wish we would have done that differently. But those conditions were so tricky, and the drivers on the radio were saying they were going to go off at any moment. So I think it kind of is what it is. We got it. They got it right by one lap, and yeah, I don't think there's anything we could have really done differently.
Great, thank you for talking to us for the moment, Zach. We'll talk to you again across the weekend. And the new race director, Rui Marquez, is the man who takes over for these final 3 races of this season. Charles Leclerc's been on the radio saying they're losing time to Mercedes on the straights around here. Mercedes were quicker in Silverstone and Belgium too when it was cooler conditions. I know you were saying they show up on a Friday and then everyone else, or they fall back over the rest of the weekend, but potentially cooler conditions, is this key for them at the moment to their performance?
Well, straight shouldn't be on the straight, really.
No, straights tend to be engine mode or fuel
Yeah, but
weight.
I mean, the performance overall, I'm not talking about just that speed on the straight, but if Ferrari think they're looking quick.
But you said that they were losing on the straights. But, you know, the thing is with the straights, yeah, it's engine modes, which is a big thing with these guys, right? But who knows, if Mercedes have always been quick in FP1, maybe it isn't just the conditions of the track changing. Maybe they just run a different engine mode than most people out there. So, yeah, who knows? But I mean, I don't think we can take too much from what they're doing out there. I think the positive for Mercedes is they are quick, and that's it. Whereas Ferrari, you know, they're lacking in some areas, but they'll come to them definitely. We know that this car is quick on round tracks like this.
I think you have to bear in mind, Mercedes will know the engine modes that McLaren are running, because obviously they're the engine supplier. So I do think that there's something on. We've had it at so many different, including Brazil, like, you know, and Austin, for example, right? Where George in Austin looked so quick on the Friday, and then as the track ramped up and everyone improved, it just when the performance just dropped away. And we've seen it in Barcelona, we've seen it in so many other places this season, where they sound so buoyant and positive on a Friday, and then just hasn't happened for them. So we'll see on a low grip cold weekend we got here how that plays out.
Charles on a set us off screen. Quickest overall through the middle sector, going to be coming around to finish the lap. You'll see Ted Kravitz at the pit lane entry. Ted, you've gone down to have a look for us.
Yeah, thank you, Rachel. Yeah, let's talk about this pit lane entry. First of all, we just come down to the from what we can see. First of all, about this dust and this muck. Look how dirty it is. I mean, just if I take some of the dust off the Tech Pro barrier at the end here, it is just hanging in the air. But that's all the work that's been done to transform the strip and all these other roads into a racetrack. But I think I know what it is now, and I think a bright yellow repainted line would probably do about right, Rach, Jensen and Karun. Because if you look at some of these lines, and look, I take, you know, your point that this is not the entry to the pit lane, but these lines are the same. I mean, A, it's dark anyway, it's a night race, I know I'm stating the obvious there, but B, these lines don't look like they've been repainted since the transformation of this circuit from the Las Vegas Strip and all the circuit and all the roads that we've been talking about into a racetrack. It just looks like these lines don't stand out. They're a bit dull. It looks like a lot of the dust has gone on, a lot of the forklifts that have been putting these barriers into place and delivering the cars to the garages. It just doesn't look like it's pinging out to the drivers as we see Fernando Alonso coming into the pit. So from where I am, I know I'm only looking at the last part of the pit entry. I can absolutely understand why the drivers cannot see a thing about the lines coming in. So maybe some pink paint or some yellow paint, Rachel? Something to really pop out and be absolutely clear for the drivers where they need to be and when.
Great, thank you, Ted, for going down and having a look for us. Got some admin to get through. Valtteri Bottas will take a 5-place penalty for this race now because he's taken a 4th energy store. We've just had that information from the FIA for a 5-place penalty for him, while Lewis is still quickest. Charles Leclerc almost on Lewis's time though, but on the softer compound of tyre. So we'll see some more. We've got a lot more runners now on the soft tyres, including Oscar Piastri right now. But still down on Hamilton.
Surprising, isn't it? It stood for that long, really, with the circuit improving. And Leclerc being on a soft tyre.
Yeah, he was 5k down on the speed trap compared to Hamilton. You know, we were hearing some comments earlier, and that's the difference. You know, 5 kilometers an hour when you've got such a long straight. That's not... that's quite a big chunk. And 4/10 of that time loss between Leclerc and Russell was just in the last sector, which is straight, obviously.
They do have a more efficient front wing, don't they, Mercedes? Was that what Ted was saying beforehand?
And Ferrari, I think, as well, both. So,
yeah.
But it's all relative, isn't it? I think, though, when we've seen, looking back this season, Ferrari have run a bit more conservative on engine mode on the Fridays.
This was a reason for the brief yellow flag in sector 3 a few moments ago.
Oh, just snatched the inside front, didn't he?
The weird thing with these lockups is that they're so early on in the braking, which is tricky for a driver. You know, sometimes you get a bit of front locking halfway through or towards the end, but that's when he's hit the brakes. When you have so much downforce, it's really unusual for that to happen. It's normally on these, obviously, cold, slippery tracks and also a little bit bumpy.
So Leclerc's having another go on these tyres, and it feels like the tyres are now, maybe they're waking up a bit more. Maybe it's not on the first lap, maybe it's on the second lap, because look,
That's big, yeah.
He's now nearly 8/10 ahead in the first 2 sectors, and we'll see as the lap unfolds if he's able to keep that advantage.
Heading down now towards 14 and breaking at the end of that 1.9 kilometre straight.
Yeah, but still, you know, 333 compared to 338 and 337 for the Mercedes. So we, you know, still it seems like maybe the Ferrari, and that could just again come back to what I was saying before, a bit more conservative on the engine mode. And look, he's lost actually time.
He did
2.5 tenths in that last sector.
351 Charles Leclerc top speed last year around this circuit during the race. 350 kilometres per hour, I should say.
In the race, you say?
Pretty sure it was in the race.
His traction seemed very good there, the Ferrari of Carlos.
Yeah.
I think he's been impressive for the latter part of the season, hasn't he, Carlos?
Yeah, he had a wobble in the middle part of the year, around that sort of Budapest time. There was a chunk of 4 races where it really looked like Leclerc had the upper hand on him. But since the summer break, he's made a good step forward. And you know what? I'm still baffled he's not ended up in a Mercedes or a Red Bull for next year.
Yeah. Oh, that was ugly.
Oof.
He still went quickest.
Was quickest, but probably held his breath a little bit there at that moment.
Yeah, because we weren't really sure what the Williams was going to do. It looked like he was moving to the left. So maybe to the left to block the corner a little bit.
Beats his teammate though by 2 tenths. So Ferrari feeling like they should have a good weekend this weekend. This is Charles Leclerc going quickest overall. Lost time, though, in that final sector, so there's obviously still some more time for them to find. And, as if by magic, Carlos proved it, because Carlos was behind him on track, and he completed his lap.
Now, this is Sainz coming down the back straight, so down the strip towards 14. And you can see just in the distance in that haze there's a car who gets out of the way. That's the Haas. And then he catches the Williams up at the chicane. A little bit of a wobble under braking, but then didn't quite realize what the Williams was going to do. Was the Williams getting out of the way or not? And then just, it looks like the Williams covered the inside line. But Sainz still went quickest. I think he is sort of compromised, especially at the 14-15 chicane.
I'm not sure he would have been compromised that much because he's got an amazing toe.
I was going to say, has he got a toe
he's lifted
as
there.
well,
He did, but he's got there quicker, hasn't he?
Yeah.
So he's had that toe all the way out the previous corner.
Well, he is top of the times, though, with a 1:36.2 for now, just ahead of his teammate. Back on with McLaren now. Lando Norris just 8th quickest so far, but as you were saying, the times are improving all the time through this session.
You'd have to say that Kevin's lap's impressive.
It is,
as
in
well.
the Haas.
Yeah.
He's had another good run in recent races. Speaking of drivers who've improved, you know, I feel like since we got to the North American triple header, not South American triple header, he's really made, you know, whatever updates he brought to the car, he's made really good progress there.
I always find it funny with Kevin because I've got a lot of time for Kevin, but if the car's working and it's competitive, he's really quick. If it's not so competitive, he's like, it just doesn't seem that he gets the best out of himself. Maybe that's not the case, but that's how it seems.
He had a spell, didn't he, where Nico was getting those good results and that good qualifying, and has turned it around a bit since then. I should say, if you want to go on board with any of the 20 drivers, you can do that. Just a little reminder, any of the drivers listen to their team radio as well. All you need to do is download the Sky Sports app, and you can do that by scanning the QR code that's on your screen now. Log in with your Sky ID, head to the Sky Sports F1 channel and choose your driver, Sky Glass, Sky Q, and Sky Stream customers. You can also do this via the interactive button on your remote control as Lando Norris goes quickest overall. That will be cheering them up as well right now.
He was actually down sector 1 by 2 tenths, 3 tenths down sector 2, but it was all in the last sector. It was 4 tenths quicker than Charles in the last sector. You would say that, yeah, different engine modes or different downforce package, but I would be surprised. It's a big chunk.
The two Ferraris between him and his teammate, though, ahead of Kevin, as you were saying, that lap from him. But Nico Hulkenberg's down there as well. He's just 4 tenths behind Kevin so far, below the Mercedes and Esteban Ocon, as we go on board with Pierre Gasly, who also did well in that race in Brazil.
He's I think, had quietly a very good season, Pierre Gasly. You know, there's some...
Right, the wheel has this connection issue. Not about the radio went on by itself. Understood, Max.
Bit of an odd issue there. Seems to be thinking there's a connector issue with the steering wheel onto where it connects onto the column. So, yeah, bit of an unusual one. But just on Gasly, I think he's had a quietly impressive season. He's, you know, I think some of the qualifyings he's done recently, dragging the Alpine into the top 10 in Austin, and I think if you look back earlier in the year, Canada, for example, started 15th, finished 9th, made good calls on strategy. I think he's been impressive, actually, this year, and unfortunately for him, it's kind of gone under the radar because the car's not been so competitive.
Yeah, he's had to keep his chin up, hasn't he, with going through... I mean, they've had a lot of work on that car this season to turn it around to a point where they can even qualify in the top 10, let alone get the kind of result they did last weekend. However much of it was down to weather and conditions, they still had to get that car around, and they both did a great job.
Yeah, it does feel that he's made a good step from last year's performance, Pierre, this year. You know, Ocon is he's quick.
He's not slow.
Quietly quick. He's always there, so it is impressive.
And he's kind of got the role of leading the team next year, hasn't he, Pierre, as well, because Jack Doohan's coming in, and they'll take the Mercedes engines, obviously, going forward, but, you know, he's been there now, he's settled in.
There's been a sort of wave of rumours, or hasn't it, about Colapinto being in contention for that seat. You know, although Jack Doohan was signed and announced, but the fact that there's a massive amount of financial support and you know, big support from Argentina, the rumors aren't going away that Colapinto is a contender for the seat at Alpine still, despite the fact that Jack's been announced.
Oh, that's not going to go down well, is it? If that does happen.
I mean,
it'd go down well in Argentina.
Go down very well in South America.
Yes,
I mean, the fan base he has is phenomenal for a driver who's only done a few races. It is quite incredible at the moment, his pull all around the world. We walked into our hotel rooms. He was on the front page of the Forbes South America magazine. You know, as you walked in on race morning, it's incredible. So you're right, the rumours don't go away that he's on the grid next year. It's just where.
We missed Max Verstappen's, well, we didn't miss it, but he went up into P6 on the soft tyre, but it's 8/10 off. It's a lot, isn't it? I mean, there's looking, you know, after the engine and having certain modes, but that's a lot of lap time.
It is. Ted, what have you got for us?
Down at Ferrari, they're just bringing a driver in, and I omitted to confirm who is trialling out the new floor in this session. It is Sainz. It's Sainz who's got the new floor on, the supposedly quicker new floor, but oh, that was quite close. There's a Ferrari mechanic that's coming out with some engine fans. He just about was missed by Oscar Piastri coming in the McLaren. You might get a replay of that in a second. So even though I think it's Leclerc who's quicker of the two Ferraris, forgive me, I don't have a timing screen down here, Rachel, maybe you can confirm that.
By 2/10, yeah.
That it is Sainz running the supposedly upgraded quicker floor. But Ferrari absolutely still clear about it, that it's only a development piece and it will come off the new floor, maybe to be seen in Qatar once they have two of them in a week's time.
Ted, just on that, when I sat down with Charles in Mexico, they were quite sort of, they thought this would be good for them, but they thought Qatar, McLaren will have it. You know, they were quite sort of resigned to that fact, so they're still fighting for this.
No, they're definitely still fighting for this. You know, they want it very badly. They were for Fred Vasseur to deliver a Constructors' Championship in his second year with the team would be exactly what he's after, and well, it would make Lewis Hamilton happy, wouldn't it, if he comes back to the Constructors' Champions for next season. Carlos Sainz might have some different feelings about it, but anyway, yeah, and do you know what? It's because it's a floor upgrade, Rachel. That's what makes me think that it's got to be worth more than we're seeing at the moment. These floors are so sensitive, and to have 3 bits of the floor that have been upgraded makes me think that, you know, they do want it on the car as quickly as possible, and I can understand why they want to be fair to both Sainz and Leclerc, but if all the data from this session suggests that this new floor upgrade is worth something, I don't know, guys, wouldn't you put it on one car this weekend?
Well, they need an average of 12 points a race weekend, don't they, between now and the end of the season to even draw level with McLaren. They're 36 behind right now, but we do have a sprint in Qatar as well.
You have to.
Yeah, no-brainer. Absolutely. You can't not put performance on the car just because you don't want to upset one of the drivers. Especially, I think if both drivers were in contention for the championship or fighting each other, that's a different story.
Yeah.
Neither of them are in contention for the drivers' championship.
One's leaving.
Yeah, but I think you absolutely can't leave any performance at this stage of the season.
On board right now with Mercedes gone.
Looks like he's struggling to get tyre temp. He's done a relatively quick lap and weaving on the straights to try and get tyre temp. That was George, wasn't it?
It was.
Verstappen's improved his time, but still nearly 6/10 away from Norris's lap time.
So everyone bar Lewis Hamilton has been out on the soft tyres now in this session. Let's see Fernando Alonso.
Yeah, I think they've been running a different program, haven't they?
Must have been.
He's some way off the pace.
That looked nice. A lot of people have been hitting the apex curve of 14, and it seems like it really unsettles the rear, so you can't get traction.
Yeah, when he comes around to finish this lap, that I was going to say it should put him in the top 10, P7. That's a battle, isn't it, for 6th in the... I mean, they're okay in 5th at the moment. They're on 86 points, but that battle for 6th between Alpine, Haas and RB, 5 points between those 3 teams right now. What a battle between them. I mean, Aston were, at one point, Haas said they were going to try and chase down Aston. I'm not sure they expected Alpine to leapfrog them.
No. Yeah.
So much money at stake as well for those single positions between them.
Yeah, Aston's, unless we have another freak result, which could happen here, you know, you've got a street race in these tricky conditions, it could well happen that a midfield team gets a big scalp somewhere. But I think Aston are just about safe enough, but certainly the battle behind them is super tight.
George is on a quick one. It looks like they need a warm lap before they have a push lap. He's 2.5 tenths up at the moment on Norris. This could work out perfectly. Nice little toe all the way to the finish line.
Toe to the finish line from this.
Maybe too much of a toe.
Too much.
Oh no, we're good.
No, that's good. Yeah, that's worth the
Gave him a
3.
10th, wasn't it?
1:35.6 then for George ahead of Lando's 1:35.9 so far in this session. As you say, Kate, got to see if we can hang on to it for the rest of the weekend.
The rear looked very stable of the Mercedes, I have to say. Apex to exit. Laterally, it seems very strong.
When you speak to the drivers, they always talk about the changes they make from Friday to Saturday. And that's when they stand in front of you and say, oh, we made a load of changes and then we went in the wrong direction. When you get a good lap and you go to the top of times like that, how tempted are you not to change anything or ask the team not to change anything? Where does it come in, or do they say, no, but we were doing this differently and we know?
It's never going to be perfect. So there'll always be some things that you want to change to the driver. If it's perfect now, it's not going to be perfect on Saturday anyway. Oh, sorry, Friday. Because the circuit's going to improve a lot. So you always want to play with the setup a little bit, improving a little bit here and there. I don't think in that situation you don't want massive changes. Because it's very difficult to feel big changes as well when the circuit's changing all the time. But no, he'll want to tweak it, definitely. Won't be perfect.
Yeah, joining Haas for the 2025 F1 Academy season.
Courtney Cron.
Yes, sorry. Yeah, they're Canada announced as well. They're racing here next year, aren't they, as well?
They are.
This has joined their calendar.
Yeah. So Lewis Hamilton finally now on a set of soft tyres. Only 4 minutes to go the session, so track conditions are probably the best they have been throughout this. Well, they are going to be the best they've been throughout this session at least. Track temperature down to 15 degrees. It's not falling as quickly as we saw it fall in the early part of the session. Air temperature is still 13 at the moment. And about a 10th up on Russell's time, Jensen, in the first sector.
It looked nice, didn't it, through that first sector. High speed. They've got a lot more confidence in the rear of the car now when it's laterally loading those high-speed corners and change direction. Bit of understeer in the car there, but traction looks good. You don't have that horrible wheel spin for sort of 30 meters they were having earlier in the session.
He's really looks like he's putting energy into the car, isn't it? He's able to hustle the car and it is responding. He's got confidence to do that. Pretty similar to George across the first 2 sectors. So both Mercedes drivers looking competitive so far, but obviously Russell got that big slipstream up to the timing line.
George has just gone quickest in the first sector overall again.
We've gone away from that drifting, haven't we already? You know, the circuit's improved that much, the soft tyre. We'll see it through here, turn 14, 15. Oh, it's a difficult one with that view. But yeah, the rear is a lot stronger now, giving the drivers a lot more confidence to be aggressive on throttle.
There you go, just confirmation with George quickest through sector 1. As Lewis finishes his lap, does go top of the times of the 1:35.4. We'll see what George can do. Ted, you had a word, he's lost time with the sector. You had a word on Yuki Tsunoda for us.
Yeah, just down at the RB garage, and if you're wondering why the RBs or the Toro Rossos or the AlphaTauris, whatever you want to call them, look a bit different, it's just a Las Vegas livery, so don't worry too much about it. Less light blue and a bit of sort of less dark blue and a bit of light blue in there as well. But they are not having a particularly great session. It's tyre graining, and Yuki has just had an issue with the rear axle, with the rear brakes. Actually, they've just had the brake tins off, and they put it back together again. And he's just now gone back out onto the track. So yeah, I think they're still last and 20th and 19th in the timings, are they?
They are indeed.
So
Ted. Yes, thank you
of course
very
they
much.
won't stay there. Well, they might. They're having a particularly difficult weekend. But yeah, that's why they've been struggling. A little technical problem on Yuki's car, and Lawson's been struggling with some graining, tyre graining.
Thank you, Ted. They're back on the mediums now as well. They've got glitter in their paint too. Oof.
That was close.
Esteban, yeah, having a bit of a fright. There is
Hey, I had to brake there.
He certainly did. As George Russell went quickest overall again a few moments ago.
Yeah, it was an interesting lap because he had a toe all the way down the back straight, but he had to pull out and overtake, so he's had to brake a little bit early. Which, Karim was just looking at the speed trap. He's kind of like 22 kilometers down on Lewis's lap, and it's all because he's braked before the speed check line, speed trap. But then he got a lovely toe out of turn 16 as well, all the way to the finish line, which probably gave him that extra 10.
Are we going to see that? We're going to see them queuing up in quali, people trying to get the toe in quali, or not?
I mean, the last sector, it actually works well because there's no high-speed corners.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think it's just so hard to plan, though.
Yeah.
You know,
It's a risk.
yeah, unless you've got a driver who's taking, you know, a 20-place grid penalty for the engines, and then they go and plan to help their teammates.
Sacrifice their qualifying.
Yeah, we very, very ever, you know, rarely see it pre-planned and working out, isn't it?
And it isn't just all benefit either, because you have to brake in a slightly different place because you have a higher speed, even if it's 5 kilometers an hour. And that's if the driver's let you past into the braking zone. If he's still in front, your visibility is different. You know, there's a car in front. It always makes it more difficult under braking to hit the limit.
And inevitably, you know, if you try and orchestrate it between teammates, the way the run plans work out, one driver will always lose out. You know, it's just you can't get the optimum run plan for both if you're trying to get one to sacrifice a lap towards the end of the session.
Mega first sector for Lewis there, purple, just over a 10th up on his teammate.
See him on the left there. We are on board with him on the left. Oh, we've got. Oh, here we go. Properly on board with him now, Jensen.
Oh, it looked actually really calm through there. I think he looks like he's taking a slightly wider line than others. Double stab at the apex there. I think he got more front grip than he expected on turn-in, but traction was still good. Now we've got a long back straight. You can hear the car touching all the way down. Now DRS, you'll see this. You'll hear the speed increase quite a bit, and now it's picking that braking point. Look at the sparks when he hits the brakes. The front of the bib touches the ground. Use a lot of curve there through the second apex. Quite an aggressive line through there. And now purple in the second sector. Now all he's got to do is just small little steering angle through that last corner and cross the line and go, oh, almost 4/10 quicker than George. That was a great lap,
wasn't it? Really good lap. No such problems as they'd had earlier on in the session then. So we were at 1:35.0 now. Pole was a 1:32.7 last year. It went down by 8 seconds from the FP1 time till pole. What do you think pole's going to be this weekend?
It's tricky. You'd think it's probably going to be the low 30s. I mean, 5-second gain from here does seem like a lot. They do seem to have quite a bit of grip out there, braking and traction. The thing that is impressive is Lewis's lap is almost a second quicker than P3. You know, it's only his teammate that was 4/10 behind him. So really impressive by Mercedes in FP1.
So Ferrari at the moment, though, in 4th and 6th with Charles and Carlos, and they're just over a second behind. Looking at the time so far, yeah. So as you say, he's ahead of George by 3/10, and then ahead of Lando Norris. Anyone else on the grid? By almost a second. This is Lando Norris. What happened to him? That's a late big lock up for him.
That was a big lock up.
And he had that accident last year here was really strange.
Yeah.
On in the race.
Yeah, that was hitting the ground. This was quite unusual. It looks like the tyres don't have temperature because it's the front right that's actually locked up, the weighted front.
So they can't do practice starts in the pit lane here, so they're doing them on the grid.
I always find this interesting, the amount of burnouts they do before, and obviously the tyre temperatures are completely different to what they would have for the actual race start, because they've just been hammering around doing time lapse. So it's about bringing the temperatures down rather than lifting them for the start.
The steering wheel sometimes randomly disconnects. Copy that, Max.
Loose connection sorted out for FP2, no doubt, by Red Bull. What's the... So just talk us through when you... Missed his pit box.
Gone a little bit farther.
Gone a bit far. Yeah, that yellow line on the left, you want to line with the top of the wheel, don't you?
Yes.
When you pull in. So for him, this is him getting his setup, him going through all his usual procedures. What did the team learn from it?
It's all for the team, basically.
None of it for the driver?
Not really. They know exactly what they're doing. They've got positions for their fingers behind the clutch paddle, and it's all pretty straightforward for them now. They've done it so many times. It's more for the teams to understand the grip level on the right-hand side of the grid, the left-hand side of the grid, and understand where the clutch is at this moment in time and how it's working. Beautiful Bellagio fountains. There is actually a gap, as you can see there now, to the track, whereas last year you couldn't see any of the fountains at all. Yeah. So a couple of days ago I was in Paris, France. And now you're... And now I'm staying in Paris again. In Paris, Vegas. I mean, it's a fantastic shot, that, isn't it? The iconic Las Vegas Strip. And we will be racing around it Saturday night. Remember, it's a Saturday night race here, early as in the UK on Sunday morning. But Lewis Hamilton, quickest overall in the Mercedes. 3/10 quicker than his teammate George Russell. The two of them almost a second ahead of Lando Norris. That's the quickest and best of the rest. Charles Leclerc in the Ferrari, fourth quickest, then Max Verstappen, the other Ferrari of Carlos Sainz. Fernando Alonso in the end, in the Aston, pulling himself all the way back up into P7. And Oscar Piastri in the McLaren. Pierre Gasly on the podium in Brazil, of course. Ninth quickest in that session, then Sergio Perez in the other Red Bull. Then we have the rest of the grid. Kevin Magnussen, the quicker of the two. Haas, Lance Stroll, Alex Albon, Esteban Ocon, Nico Hülkenberg, Valtteri Bottas, Franco Colapinto, much talked about, P17 and the two RBs, Yuki Tsunoda and Liam Lawson, rounding out the 20. 19th and 20th quickest in that first session here in Brazil. Join us later for second practice.